Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beat your price. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beat your price.
With Uber Reserve, you can book your Uber ride in advance, 90 days in advance. Perfect for all you forward thinkers and planning gurus. Reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance. Uber Reserve. See Uber app for details.
Hello, I'm Pip, and welcome to the Midwife Pip podcast, the home of expert information and real chats on all things pregnancy, birth, and beyond. Honestly, having one baby at a time feels more than enough to me, and I am in total awe of twin parents, and genuinely cannot get my head around how they navigate the newborn period around the clock with two small people. This week, I've managed to steal a total super mumma away from running her business and caring for her toddler and new twin girls to hear about her experience and tips for other twin mums too. So welcome, Em, because you are blooming incredible. Tell us all about how you're doing at the minute.
I feel like every mum's incredible. It's a tough job. But thank you. What a lovely intro. I'm good. You know what? I say that I'm good. Had a 4:30 wake up from Florence, who didn't want to go back to sleep. But I said to Charlie, I was like, can you just handle the twins? That got to about 6 o'clock. I was like, I need a bit more sleep. Otherwise, I'm not going to make any sense today. So, but apart from that, I'm good. The older one's at preschool, so that helps. But yeah, how are you?
It's a lifesaver, isn't it? An absolute lifesaver, childcare. It's amazing. And I love what you just said, like our default, I think, so often as women in society, and especially in mums, I think, when someone says, how are you? We go like, yeah, I'm really good, thanks. And then you're like, actually, how am I? Because it's often, there's a lot more to it, isn't it? There's not actually that many days where I'm like, yeah, everything's just okay. Like I am generally okay. However, as I was saying before we hit record, Alfie's got a cold today. That's unfortunate. He's got a toddler brother who goes to nursery. It's going to happen. But off the back of his meningitis illness, I feel like every time this child has anything wrong with him, I'm just going to be like an anxious, irrational mess.
Yeah.
So that's how I am today. And he's joining us because can't bear to put him down.
Oh, that's so good.
But
I mean, I had my hands full if I had mine.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I mean, we're going to talk so much about this because I watch your stories and I'm like, I just don't know how it works. I don't know how it works in any sense. So you're going to enlighten us. But I want to take you back to the beginning, Em, if I can. And that moment, I mean, I'm assuming it's your 12-week scan, but you may have had an earlier one. So tell me about the moment that you found out there wasn't just one baby. Because you said, and I think you've spoken quite openly about the fact that you planned to have a family with 2 children, and here you are with 3.
Yeah. Yeah. We found out at 8 weeks because I was like, let's go for a reassurance scan. So we did with Olive, and I think for me it's just one of those things. I'm working with like a lot of pre and postnatal women. Like I see every type of pregnancy complication under the sun. So I think I'm just so aware of what could go wrong. So I'm very much like, I just need to know that everything's okay, because getting to 12 weeks is a long old time. So we booked in, and because it was like early on, it was like transvaginal scan, and the sonographer went really quiet, and I was like, oh God, I've been feeling really rubbish up to this point, and I thought it's gonna be bad news. And then, oh God, sorry, my thing's going them back. Just turn those off actually. Oop. And then basically I thought, he's like, and he goes, do you want to see your babies? And I was like, fuck. He goes, yeah, there's 2 heartbeats. And I was like, Charlie just sat in silence, and I was just like, how has this happened? Just basically swearing. And I was laughing, then I was crying, and then I was laughing and then crying. And it was just this huge shock, because in my family, no one's got twins. I was like, never ever once in my life I thought I would have twins. And we just were squeezing this scan in before we went to pick Olive up from nursery as well. So like literally we went straight from there to pick her up, and we just sat in the car being like, having had this like massive ball of news, just bomb of news just drop on us. We were like, and then we just didn't really get time to process it. Um, and then I think I was just in this like quite dark pit for like two weeks, because it was suddenly like how all these things come up, because I think going from one to two is quite an easy jump because everything's made for a family of four.
Yeah.
So like my so we would so wake up in the night being like, how do car seats work? Holidays like are suddenly more expensive. Like our house, we've got two kids' rooms. Like we're gonna have to build another room in time. Like all these things, and
Yeah.
then being self-employed, I was suddenly like, how's the barn gonna work? I was like, with Olive, I went back to work. I went back to work really, really early, but like 4 months was when I was fully back at work. And I was like, I don't think I'll be able to do that with two kids, because I can't leave Charlie with two kids or three if Olive's around. Like, how's that going to work? So I'll need to get someone in, but then we'll need to make enough money to be able to cover that person to come in. So there was all this panic. And then also there was just the guilt around introducing two siblings at once, because I feel like being a first time mum, you don't, oh, why is this going off? Sorry.
I can't actually hear it, Em, if it's your
Oh, can you
notification.
not? Okay, cool. That is my notifications. Okay, so if I
Yeah,
can
don't
ignore
stress.
it. But it was like this guilt around, yeah, introducing two siblings at once. Because when you're a first time parent, you're just they're like you're supposed to like this little three, and you're like you don't know how life would be if you introduce someone else, and you don't know if you'll love enough another child as much as you love your first.
Mm.
And like so you're like, oh my God, there's only two of us and there'll be three kids. How are we going to manage Olive's needs as much as these two new babies? So there was that guilt. And then like finances, you're like, oh my God, nursery fees as well. You're just like, great, gonna have three kids in nursery at once.
Yeah.
And then I think lastly was just like the whole thing around aesthetics. Because like when you're a when you hear about twin pregnancies, like, I've never trained anyone throughout a twin pregnancy, but I've coached people the other side. Like I've had a few mums who've had twins, like further down the line comes classes here. And I was just like, I'm not one for aesthetics, but I was just like, how's my body going to cope? Because so many people are like, I exercised up to like 24 weeks and then I just couldn't even walk. And you're just like, how big am I going to get? Like, because being, I actually haven't really explained, I run to anyone who doesn't know who I am, which is probably a lot of people, I run a gym called the Barn KT9, which
Mm.
specializes in pre and postnatal exercise. And I'm one of the instructors here as well. So like, it's quite a physical job.
It's your job, right? You need to be able to move and exercise,
Yeah.
show people what to do ultimately.
Yeah, so it was kind of that, and also like being a DCDA pregnancy. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's like where you've got two sacs, two placentas. I was like, that's quite a lot extra aside from the two babies. So I was like, how big am I going to get? um, and but actually, yeah, the pregnancy was very much up and down, and also like Charlie was very much hit with like this whole how we're going to cope, because also when you find out you're pregnant, your first thing you do is like you turn to Google. So my thing was like reading up about vanishing twin syndrome. So it was like
Mm.
reading up like if I get obviously I found out I was pregnant with twins at 8 weeks, but there's a chance that I could get to 12 weeks and there'd be no babies, or there could be one baby. Like so there was how is this going to pan out? And Charlie was just reading up. There's a charity called Twins Trust, which is great. Like it's really good. It's got like all this information about twins, all this support and everything. But then he was reading up on the Twins Trust, like experience of twins as a dad, and everyone was like, your life is like how you're going to survive, and like your life is going to be over, and all this and that and the other. And you're just like, there's just so much negativity about having twins and how hard it's going to be. And yes, it's hard, but like, oh, we'll talk about this in a bit, but it hasn't been like the end of the world. Like the first bit is pretty tough, but like we've made it work. And yeah, but yeah, it's been an interesting one.
Oh, and thank you for being so honest, because I feel like there's this context in all pregnancy, but it must be heightened with multiples, in that when you find out you're pregnant, you must just be full of elation and complete joy and gratitude. And of course, like there's elements of,
Yeah,
I'm not saying you didn't feel joy and gratitude for being pregnant at all,
yeah,
but also that like hitting home of how is this actually going to work from so many aspects.
yeah.
I really resonate with a lot of what you're saying around Olive and her needs, because I felt that just
Mm,
introducing a singleton into our family and that guilt around Finley, our firstborn. So to navigate that twice fold, at least I knew we could divide
yeah,
and conquer, one take one each, worst case, to actually think how are we going to navigate that with three is really, really tough. And I think for mums listening that are in a twin pregnancy or have just found out they're having twins, just to hear that actually it's okay and it's valid to feel those practical concerns, because they're real and this is real life, and that's all right. Because I think often when we think of twins, you see a lot on social media of like two gorgeous little babies snuggled up together and it all looks very
yeah,
lovely, and I'm sure you've had moments of that, but I'm sure equally they've been few and far between amongst real life, especially with a 3-year-old in the mix as well. Like, you're just incredible, and I've loved following your journey, and you've looked like you've been taking it in your stride with elements of beautiful realism, which I, adore from your page. And it looked like you managed to stay strong and keep training for a good old chunk of your pregnancy.
yeah. You know what? It was one of those things. I was like, I don't know how it's going to go, but I'll just keep moving, because having been pregnant before, like training throughout pregnancy, as you know, is so important, because like, especially with a twin pregnancy, you have this massive bump growing on your front, like this huge anterior load. So you need to keep your body strong to be able to support it. And I was actually really surprised by how well training went throughout pregnancy. Like towards the end, obviously, I adapted things and just like changed my foot stance if I felt I got a bit of pelvic girdle pain, or like, and just modified things for where my body was at. But like, I stopped training 2 days before my birth, because
Wow.
I just didn't want to go into cesarean with DOMS. I
Valid.
was like,
Fine.
it's like, do you know what? This is sensible. Don't want to run that risk. We'll just stop training at this point. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Um, but like, I think walking was the hardest bit, I think, for me. So like training actually felt okay. I used to love going for like long walks, but as after a while, I knew it just felt carrying this heavy weight. You're just like, actually, I can't do that. So
And can
yeah,
you touch on your birth a little bit? Because for those of you that have listened to the podcast for a while, you may have already listened to, and if not, then I'd recommend going back to listen to. But you kindly shared with us your birth experience
yeah,
with Olive's birth, which was, a very beautiful, fairly straightforward, fairly quick, spontaneous vaginal birth. And I'm sure when you found out you were pregnant again, you kind of planned a very similar, if not identical, birth to Olive. But actually, you made empowered, informed decision to birth your twins via an elective cesarean. Do you mind kind of explaining sort of how you came to that decision then? Because it must have been a difficult one, I think, because you loved your birth with Olive. I know you share how positive it was.
yeah. It was weird, because I was just like, as soon as I found out I was pregnant with twins, I didn't realize that a vaginal birth was possible with twins. Like, you
Mhm.
just think, oh, and then so in my head I had cesarean from the outset, and then I spoke with my midwife, and she goes, "You're a really strong candidate for a vaginal birth, given how straightforward Olive's birth was." Um, she's like, "It's what," and then I was like, "Oh, actually," and then my mind was going between the two, and I was like, "Oh," but then I think it was just because of like this fear of the unknown. I felt like there's so much I felt that could happen with twins. I was like, I just feel like I need to know that I'm going in on this day. Also, it helps with childcare, which we don't have much of. But going on this day, and it's going to go that way, because with Olive's birth, the placenta got a bit stuck, and I was like, this time I've got two placentas, and if one of those gets stuck, that's just that will just be a pain.
Mm.
Or like, imagine in my head, I was like, imagine if you get if you birth one baby vaginally and then you had to have an emergency cesarean for the second. And I think they said to me like it was a 5% chance of that happening. But I was like in my head, oh, imagine if that happens. So I think it was just that kind of like, I just need to know that it's going to go that way.
Yeah.
But I asked, because I think as soon as you say you're having twins, suddenly you just get this whole like twin mum community, like just arrives from nowhere. And I had quite a lot of twin mums tell me their vaginal birth experiences, and they were so positive. And I was like, oh, it is. But I was just like, do you know what? Cesarean is kind of like in my head. I was like, that's the best way. And and I thought I'd rather have a positive cesarean birth and a positive vaginal birth. So I've had and to be honest, I've had two really positive experiences. So that's just amazing. I can talk a bit more about the birth if you want, but that could be quite a lengthy one.
No, but I think what's really key, I think, is for twin mums to understand that A, you've got choices, and B,
Yeah.
you don't have to, just because you've had a vaginal birth before, you don't have to go for that. Actually, there are options and choices. Can you tell us a little bit about what made this cesarean so positive for you? Tell us a little bit about that birth, because I love hearing about birth.
Yeah, I mean, well, I hate needles. I hate anything like that. So I was shit scared when I went in. And the spinal block just put the fear of God into me. But once you're kind of in that, I had it at Kingston Hospital, and it was just like they had like this drawing on the ceiling. You go in like before the thing, everyone comes and meets you and explains what's going to happen. And you go in, and then everyone tells you about their different roles that they'll be playing.
And there's a lot of people at a twin birth because you literally have two.
So there's like two pediatricians, two midwives, I think there's like 14 people in total or something, or maybe even more. And and like the anaesthetist was so chatty. She was really lovely and like really reassuring. Like people held my hand and I got really like scared. And then literally it's that moment, like it's just that initial bit, and then suddenly you're handed your baby or babies, and you're suddenly everything else just gets completely forgotten. So you forget what's going on, and you're so focused on these babies being there. And it was just a really wonderful like experience. I mean, like the initial recovery post C-section is not the easiest. That really took me by surprise.
And I guess you had that comparative, didn't you? Like recovery with one baby from a straightforward vaginal birth versus recovery with two babies and a toddler and a cesarean birth, like very, very different experiences.
Yeah, and I think that bit post birth, like I lost 1.9 liters of blood.
A bit generous, a little bit generous like that.
No. But luckily my HB levels were just high enough so that I didn't need a blood transfusion. But obviously you're pumped full of drugs, and then they give you all the oxytocin to just help your like uterus contract. So like the day the girls were born, I was just in this complete like fish tank bubble, didn't know what the hell was going on. I remember speaking to my sister after, like a few days later, I was like, I don't know if I actually called you. So I was like, oh no, I do remember. It's like all this like really hazy daydream. I don't even know what I was talking about. But yeah, like Kingston Hospital, they were just brilliant. And like my twin midwife popped up the day after the girls were born as well to say hello because she was around. And yeah, it was just really, really good. And like the recovery's it's been all right actually. Like it's taken me by surprise how tough cesarean recovery is versus like just in comparison. But then again, I did have a twin pregnancy, so my uterus was double the size. I've also got a toddler. But no, it was really wonderful.
I mean, what a journey, what a journey. Can you tell us, and I know this is something that you share so beautifully on your social media, but what have been some of the biggest challenges about having twins?
One of the biggest challenges, I think, is just we don't have any support because my parents live about 3-4 hours away in Norfolk and I live in Surrey. And my in-laws are always really busy with work. So it's literally just Charlie and I. I'm lucky that Charlie is around. So like we kind of do 50-50 parenting. But it has to be said, like I'm so glad this was my second pregnancy, that it wasn't just me just because you kind of know that everything's a phase and how babies work. Although I think I did forget at the beginning, I was like, oh my God, how does this work again? But you kind of pick it up and you know that it's all going to pass.
You've got more confidence, haven't you? Because
Yeah,
you've
you
done this
do.
baby bit before.
Yeah. And then I think like one of the biggest challenges is like pregnancy and on the other side, like there's just so much like negativity around twins. Like I feel like people would just be like, oh, I think it was just like, you've got twins, oh, you're in trouble, or double trouble, and this, that, and the other. Um, and like a lot of twin parents would be like, oh, you're in the trenches, like in those newborn stages. Like, and they'd always give me like a look of this pity, being like, oh, you're okay, it's really hard. And I think those first 10 weeks were intense. I remember Charlie going off for a bike ride. Because I was like, oh, the witching hour hasn't happened. It's absolutely fine. Go for a bike ride in the evening, get out of the house, do something for you. And I sat here, and at that time I was exclusively breastfeeding. And they were so small, like because they were so diddy at the beginning, I couldn't quite get the hang of tandem feeding. And
Yeah.
he was out on this bike ride, and literally they were both just screaming their heads off. So I put one on a boob, and then I'd swap, and then I'd swap. And I just had these two screaming babies, and I was like, oh, this is doing that like constantly for like 2 hours while he was out. And then he got home. I was like, oh my God, that was the worst thing ever.
You're never leaving the house again.
Yeah. And then like I remember like Charlie and I used to just sit there in the evenings, and he'd just be like, this is so shit. I'd be like, it's fine. Because he was quite like on edge about the idea of having twins throughout pregnancy. I was really determined to like make it an okay experience and pick up any like negativity around it. And then but then like I got to 4 weeks, and I think there was one night where I was awake for 6 hours straight, I hadn't gone to bed, and it was like 5 a.m. and I was like, Charlie, I was like, I need you to just take these babies away from me right now. Because I'd feed one, settle them, but then the other one would wake, feed them, settle them, and then you'd probably get like maybe half an hour to an hour's sleep, and then you'd have to do it all over again. And
I mean,
yeah,
quite literally double the work in every single possible aspect.
yeah. So then we made a decision at 4 weeks. So Charlie would have a bottle to feed formula, and I'd breastfeed the other, and then we'd swap. Yeah. So that was kind of how we did the night feeds. So then we'd both be up at the same time. And you know what? That was like an absolute godsend, because I felt like he was in it with me. And there was none of that like resentment you get in your first pregnancy, or like in a single pregnancy where you're just sat there looking at the husband being like, you and your useless boobs. Like he was actually in it with me, and I was like, oh, time to wake up now, come on. It's quite satisfying. And then like I guess another thing was just like getting up and out and about. It's just like that, you like, is this double buggy going to fit through the doors of where we're going to? Because there's that, I was like, and luckily it's not it's not happened to me yet, but like there's that anxiety. And also just like I went to a birthday party of the day, and it was for Olive, and I took the twins with me, and I was like, if one of them wakes up, like one was asleep and the other one was awake, and I was like, if the other one wakes up, I don't know how I'm going to do this in the gymnastics club, because I've got to keep an eye on Olive as well. But luckily one of the mums there I knew, and she just like held the other twin for me. So I guess there's that. And then I think one of the hardest things is just the splitting of my time, because you're just like, you want to give the babies your undivided attention, but then you've also got Olive, and you're trying to like split your time between three. And it's also just like, you just get a very different experience with twin babies than you would if you have a single baby, because you can't have those cuddles on the sofa for hours on end, because once you've fed and changed one baby, it's then time to feed and change the other baby. So you kind of have to put them down and then tend to the needs of the other baby. So I feel like they get slotted in to life quite a bit. It's like whatever works at that time. And also I think because having Olive, it's really important that she will remember this stage and like how she feels. Whereas the twins won't know as much, whereas she will. And like, it's one of those things that you have to make sure that her experience of her sisters is okay, and that she doesn't end up resenting them for taking all our attention as well. So it's just a whole load of things going on, basically.
It's a big old, it's a big old juggle, Em. It's a big old juggle. But like you said a few times, is that there's a lot of negativity surrounding pregnancy, having multiples, having twins. So what have been some of the good things? What are some of the best bits about having twins that those of a singleton can't relish in and you can?
Oh, it's just that bond from day one. Like when they got put in the bassinet in the hospital together, like Peggy, who's the smaller twin, would literally roll onto her side and just spoon Florence. And it was just really cute. And they'd just be like, or they'd always be like touching hands or like touching each other. And it was adorable. And like even now they'll like reach out, touch each other's hands, and like they're still in a they're in a cot bed together now. But it's getting to the point where they're now moving a bit, so I need to separate them, which breaks my heart. But yeah, it's just so lovely how they interact with each other, and it's just really nice that I can leave them on the mat together, and they'll just like keep each other company.
Yeah, they're never alone, I guess. Like
yeah, which I think also helps with the sleep, because early days the sleep was appalling, whereas now I think because they don't feel alone, they don't have that anxiety if you leave them. Like, well, they don't feel sad. They don't seem to be sad, and they're settled quite quickly, so they sleep
I guess
quite
they've
well.
always got some familiarity. We talk about babies being in such an unfamiliar environment outside of the womb, but they've got some element of familiarity because each other is still there and the noises that each other make and things, I suppose.
My brand new book, Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth, is now available. So much more than a book, this is a guide that allows me to hold your hand through your birth preparation journey. With over a decade of experience and knowledge packed in to ensure you really are empowered in the way you deserve to achieve a positive birth, regardless of the twists and turns that crop up. Make sure that you get your hands on Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth book now and are empowered to have the birth experience that you deserve.
Yeah. And I think there's just this weird fascination with twins. Like everyone, I had a meeting the other day and I was just I had the twins there in their double buggy. This new shade song says like they're asleep. And this woman was like, twins, can I see them? I was like, I've just got them to sleep. I just cannot even.
The snooze shade is like the biggest hint of don't interfere with the baby, isn't it? Like,
it's like they're under there. I was like, one of them wasn't going to sleep, so we're in that 4-month stage at the moment. And I was just like, no. But like people would just like in the early days, they'd share like a bassinet and the pram together. So I'd just push them around, they were in there together. And people would like, everyone just peers in, no new baby. And then suddenly they're like, oh, there's two babies. Oh my God, can I have a look? And like, you just get all these people stopping. So it's really lovely. It is quite a nice attention in those early days. So like, I remember going out with like one of my friends had one baby and I'd be there with my two. And they'd just be like, oh. And then like my other friend's baby just didn't get a look in because like it was just one baby.
You were double as impressive.
Yeah, but you just get so many comments. But then like twins is just such a conversation point. Like, we've got a cafe here on site, and there are quite a few. When we found out we're having twins, there were people come up who'd say they were twins, or they say they had twins, or so and so they knew had twins, and it was just really nice hearing people's stories of like having twins that have grown up, because you're like, it just reinforces how magical that bond is, and like how close they are and everything, which is really nice.
And that community, I guess, must be really nice, because I can imagine especially when you're in the trenches of those difficult days, actually having another twin parent that gets it is so different to having just like another parent, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think when you have twins, it's really important to find other twin mums to become friends with, because single mums don't quite grasp the concept of how hard it is.
Yeah.
And like, I've got a few people I've been speaking to, which has been really helpful. But you just don't really realise how hard it is until you suddenly are around a mum with just one baby and you're like, oh no, it is really different. Like yesterday I had some friends over for lunch and they each had their one baby and I had my two, and like one went down for a nap, the other one woke up, and then within seconds the other one woke as soon as that one went to sleep, the other one woke up, and then they're both up at the same time. But like everyone was really good at helping me just like holding one baby so I could feed the other. But it was just, you suddenly realize it's just quite relentless as well. You're just like, oh, just
Yeah,
don't quite
on
get the
repeat.
break.
You are honestly,
Yeah.
I'm in awe, honestly, I'm in absolute awe of you. It's just amazing, just amazing. Now, I think, I know you said when you guys, but you and Charlie found out you were having twins and your kind of mind went through like, oh my goodness, it sinks in and it's like practicality. What do we do? What's gonna make this possible? You know, how is this even survivable? Are there any bits of like equipment or resources that you guys have found that you would recommend to other twin parents that have made things easier? Because like you, I wouldn't really know where to start with like twin sleep setups without it just completely taking over the entire house and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I also just like how you manage twins. I was like, how do you sleep? So, like, do they sleep together? Do they sleep apart? How do you feed them? There are just so many. Do you keep them on a schedule? Do you just go with it? Like, there's so many different questions. And so for us, I think double buggy is a must.
Yeah.
Like, and I quite one we bought a bugaboo donkey off Vinted, and they're side by side. It is massive and quite cumbersome. It's handy for the fields around here to like go across, but we've just bought a smaller one called a baby jogger or baby jogger city duo or something, and that's a little bit more compact and it's a lot easier to just fold up because our pram currently takes up the whole boot of our car and it's quite
Yeah,
a
I
big car,
imagine.
isn't it? So
You need like for where you live, like for those that haven't seen she lives in, well, you can see the beautiful beams that I've enjoyed with the little tour of her house before we came in.
I can
But
show you outside the window.
oh
There we
look,
go.
just beautiful, just beautiful. We must make sure we
Taking
repurpose the view. But Emma lives on a beautiful farm, Fairset's farm, but you've built the barn,
yeah,
which is where you do all your pre and postnatal training from. So very rural. You need
yeah.
a rural buggy, and we know they're big, especially when you then need two babies in a rural buggy.
Yeah. So that's baby bjorn bouncers are an absolute godsend because you can just bounce one while you're feeding the other, or like keep them entertained. Headphones from that, and then or like if you need to like put them in front of the telly to watch a bit of like there's a really good Etta Loves
I saw
sensory
that
film.
this morning. Oh my God, that
It's
looks
really good.
amazing.
Yeah, because it's not as like overwhelming and overstimulating as the classic Hey Bear. So yeah, that's really handy. And also like or like when you're bottle feeding, they're a little bit more upright, so you can kind of bottle feed them in the bouncers. I'm just longing for the day when they can hold their own bottle, because that'd be an absolute game changer. And then the classic Potter and Temple play mat, just because they're so big and you can just literally leave them on there to just move around. So they just lie on it and entertain each other.
And if they vomit
And I
on
guess,
them, it doesn't matter because you can just wipe them clean and it's
oh my
great.
God, exactly. I think they're kind of like our key things that we found are really helpful for twins. And like, also, I guess like we've got a cleaner every Monday and she's just like, oh my God, send, because the rest of the house just goes to shit when you've got three kids, because you're like, okay, I need to tend to your knees, and then you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh my God, I've got to do that washing up or whatever, which I'm actually looking at the corner of my eye. So yeah, so if you can, that's amazing too. But yeah, I think they're kind of like double buggy, bouncers, and like a good play mat seems to be pretty handy.
And I think, we're like you, in that we've only got two children, put that out there first. But we also don't have, support around us. So if we've got support, it's paid help. So be that, a cleaner, nursery, childcare, all that kind of stuff. And I think one of the things that we need to get better at as women, we're in this like, I feel like we're this guinea pig era of mothers where the societal expectations, partly that we put on ourselves, you've got your business,
Yeah.
things that you need to be doing that perhaps generations ago women didn't do because you didn't go back to work after you had children. So we've got like these societal pressures and obviously social media, and that's like a beast, isn't it, in so many good and bad ways. But then from a practicality perspective, we've often got less support. There's less, practical and emotional support because people move away from families now. We're not in this big village culture where you have a baby and like the sofa and everyone rallies around you. But also from a professional support perspective, resources are so stretched. I know when like I was born, my mum stayed in hospital for 2 weeks just because that's what they did to look after you. Like we're in this really hard time. And so I think being able to, especially if you've got twins, lean into the help of
strangers, obviously in an appropriate way, but like friends and family. So, at that baby group and someone says, do you want me to hold that baby while you do X, Y, and Z? Like not feeling like you need to just manage on your own is really powerful. And it sounds like that's something that you've kind of done on your journey.
Yeah, like just having like outside of the cafe, like there's quite a big community that's built up around here, and everyone who like knows our business knows that we've had twins, and people are like, oh, are these the twins? I'm like, do you want to hold them? Yeah, here you go.
Please do.
So just got all these people like holding the twins. But like I was going to say, actually, one thing that's really important, because I do go through, there've been a few phases where I'm just like, I felt like I was just helping everyone and making sure everyone else is okay, but no one was making sure I was okay.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is just too much. And I think as a second time mum, you realize the importance of taking time out for you, because once you've got a babe, if you're looking after a baby or a toddler or whatever, you're constantly on. So like you're constantly like on edge. You're kind of like, what's their next move? When are they going down for a nap? When do they need feeding? Are they going to walk off fall down those stairs or like whatever? So you're never fully relaxed. So taking that time out, like I think we've got this thing where we try and take an hour each day. Charlie and I, so like I'll just go out for like a walk solo or do a workout by myself or just have some time in the house to just do vintage stuff or whatever. Yeah. But like just that time where I don't have to think about a baby, because it just helps me kind of regulate a little bit. That is really key, I think.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's communication, isn't it? Like you have to communicate within that relationship of like, this is what I need today. How are we going to make it happen? And vice versa. Because like you say that, otherwise that middle of the night glance at those useless male nipples can really start to eat away at you for sure.
My God, that resentment builds up fast.
It does. I feel you. I feel you. And one of the things I ask you all the time, and I don't know how you're going to answer this in a way that doesn't take us 3 weeks, but how do you actually juggle 2 babies? Because I'm sat here, right? Em and I are recording, for those of you that can't see us, and I've got Alfie on me because he's a bit clingy and a bit unwell, and that's not really an issue. Finley's at nursery. I've got one child at home. He's 11 weeks. I can put him on my chest or put him in a carrier and kind of crack on. You cannot do that with 2. How do you do it? How do you do it, Em? I don't know how you do it.
I'm really lucky that Charlie is also around a lot of the time. So we're kind of like 50 parenting. So like as we speak, I can see him in the garden sat there with a buggy next to him and a muslin in front of him. So I think he's feeding one of the twins. He's got them right now. So like we just have to be like really efficient in like, right, I've got this hour, this booked in. Can you take them at this point? So it's kind of like the juggle between
communication and like boundaries of actually like, I feel like sometimes I've heard a lot actually on social media recently about like is it the dominant parent or like the primary parent or something, whereas it sounds like no, we're doing that together, like this is going to be
so there's that. And then I guess like quite literally juggling, I'm just so glad to do the job that I do and to have that strength to be able to pick them both up at the same time, because like I'm in a twin mum WhatsApp group, and there are just a few people in there who keep complaining about their backs hurting because like picking up twins and stuff, and I'm just like, touch wood, I'm okay at the moment. But yeah, like those early days, I felt like a dog just like crawling like 2 puppies onto my boobs, because just like reach out, grab one, put them on, and then reach around and try and grab the other. So but like, yeah, it's just about being efficient and just kind of like the thing is like just trying to stay one step ahead and just make sure that you'll never have 2 unhappy babies at once, because that's just when everything melts down, because you just can't split yourself in 2. So that I think that's the times where I just feel like everything just falls apart if they're both hungry at the same time, or like are both sad, or are both poo themselves or whatever. Like that's the times where you're like, I can't do this. But it's just trying to stay one step ahead, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually. You can deal with 1 unhappy baby's need at one time, but when there's 2, and I think as a mum, hearing your baby cry is quite triggering anyway, isn't it? So if you've got 2 and you can't physically deal with it, that's just stressful for everyone. Then they pick up on your stress and you're just in this like cycle of mayhem.
Yeah,
And another thing I wanted to ask you is a little bit about your postnatal recovery, because I know you said to start with it was really tough, especially when you had that comparative from your like easy singleton vaginal birth recovery. How has that been for you personally? And I'm conscious asking you this, that it's going to vary for everybody, but I just think it's
Yeah.
really nice to get other people's experiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like the first 10 days were horrendous. Like, I remember day two waking up being in a lot of pain, and because I had lots of blood loss, they weren't sure if they were if I could have ibuprofen just yet. So I just was on paracetamol, and you were just like, this isn't enough. And you kind of in this like pit of despair, wondering if you'll ever get better again or be able to walk, like when they
Yeah.
take the catheter out, and you're like, oh, I don't think I'll be able to move to the toilet. But by day 10, it is just so much better. Um, it has been really interesting from like a PT perspective as well, just seeing how cesarean recovery is. And because like you don't really see people with those early stages, like what happens, like as the scar. I remember there was like a hard lump forming, and I was like, oh my God, what's this? And I realized it's just all the scar tissue forming. It was quite early on, and but it was all right. Like I kept it clean. But like I let it dry. Didn't use silicone strips too early. I also have been seeing like a lady who specializes in scar massage, which I'm really happy to do. Like so, down in Surbiton at a place called Laura Tilson Osteo. I've been going there to see a lady called India Cook, and she just like she's helped educate me about the scar as well, which has been really helpful. And also I think the thing is like your body's been through so much. Like it's just I follow a few people on Instagram who've had like cesareans, and like as soon as they hit 6 weeks, they're like, here I am doing like double leg extensions with straight legs and stuff. And you're just like, don't start at that point. Like you may feel like just start off gradually. Like we've got a return to exercise course here at the Barn K29 that's called postnatal uplift the beginning. And it is literally starts off week one, stretches, deep like deep core like work, breathing, like connecting with that pelvic floor, and just like moving into like rebuilding all those movement patterns in. And like that is how it should
How it
be, because
should
you get so
be, yeah.
it really frustrates me actually. And you see so many people going off doing like, I'm back in, here I am lifting heavy weights at like 6 weeks. I'm like, okay, cool, great, you
Let's
can
not
do that. But
celebrate that.
actually,
Like, let's not
yeah,
again. All good.
I'm like, your body may be able to do that, but how about you just start off gentle, rebuild those foundations, and then you'll come back so much stronger. Because like now I'm like lifting like a lot. Like the other day I was like, I deadlifted 60 kilos for like 10 reps. Like, and I don't think I was able to do that. I mean, like if like some people might do that out straight, but I feel so much stronger having rebuilt everything, and they've got like no niggles and stuff. So like recovery's been all right, but it's just a lot slower than I thought it would have been, because you kind of think, oh, I thought my C-section would feel okay by now. And like, no, I'm actually have to remind myself that I'm only 4 months since major abdominal surgery. And your scar tissue takes up to 2 years to kind of like evolve and develop. So it's just an ongoing. And also, like, if you had a knee surgery, you'd always say, this is my dodgy knee.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I think because you've had a cesarean and it's just like, oh, it's just childbirth, that's what our society likes to think. Like, you just don't think of it as something that will need attention for the rest of your life, I guess, because you should keep massaging it. Can't like you obviously don't need to massage it as much throughout the rest of your life, but like it's something you need to be mindful of and like pay attention to, because otherwise it can cause problems. So but yeah, it's all right. I'm feeling fairly good in myself, to be fair.
Good.
It's
And that's,
just
I think, again, reassuring for people to hear. But I love what you just said, about that, like that expectation and return to exercise. I think even if we take mode of birth or twin pregnancy out of it, it infuriates me so much. And I think we're seeing more and more, and whether this is just my algorithm at the moment, because social media knows I'm postnatal and AI does funny stuff, doesn't it? But I'm seeing so
Yeah.
much around, especially like influencers, not necessarily professionals, back lifting weights at like, you know, or exercising or running at like ridiculous timescales postnatally. And then people are like, oh, that's amazing, you know, that's
Yeah.
incredible. How did you get that? I want to do that. And I just feel like saying there's a reason why in 2024, half of postnatal women have a pelvic organ prolapse. This is the
Yeah.
reason why, because we don't grant our bodies the respect and the compassion that, quite frankly, they need. And if we did,
Yeah.
like you say, have a knee surgery or, you know, anything else, we'd expect to have this period of rehabilitation. And we don't respect that with birth, and it's wrong. Women deserve better. And also, it's not just a normal recovery. If you were recovering normally, you'd be like, oh, I need to sleep really well. I need to really, you know, nourish my body and eat really well and rest up. Motherhood is none of that. So you're already like on the back foot trying to recover before we even consider what your body's been through. And it's not just the birth injury, it is the
Yeah.
process of pregnancy and the diastasis recti and the pelvic floor sort of stretching and weakening that happens on that journey as well. And I feel like there's just not enough understanding out there, and there's so much championing of like this rush to get back somewhere, and ultimately we damage ourselves. It might not be in that first year, it might be when you're premenopausal, but then that kind of rears its head. But yeah, you're preaching to the converted there. It drives me mad.
I mean, it drives me crazy. I've seen a few people, it's like, I've had a baby, cool. So this, and I'm a PT, so this is my return to exercise. Here I go. And I'm like, but you've not shown any like stage one, like ab work or anything else that like will help you get to where you're at now. Like, I was like, are you even pre and post qualified to be able to giving out this advice? Or are you just, because you've got a big following, you just assume, and then you see all these people being like, oh my God, you're so amazing. I wish I'd had this when I've had my C-section recovery. I'm like, you shouldn't be doing that. So then I don't want to be that hater that's like keyboard warrior, and then I'm like, just stay in your lane.
I
But
know, but I think it's such an important message to, and I feel if no one takes anything else away from this, don't rush to return to exercise, or do return to exercise. But I think, again, exercise is such a broad term. We're talking about return to recovery, you know, recover your body, rehabilitate your body, give it that
yeah,
nurturing pelvic floor and core rehabilitation. Do that early. Yes, amazing.
yeah.
But don't try and like lift a massive weight or go for a run. Someone said the other day, oh, I'm not going to go for a run, I'm just going to go for a jog. And I'm like, no. Impact on your pelvic floor. I don't care whether it's a jog or a run, neither's happening. Like, go for a walk. Great, perfect. But like, oh, yeah. I mean, we could talk about this for weeks, couldn't we? I feel.
Oh my God, it's a real bugbear of mine. That's why I set up this gym, because I was like, we see so many people just going back in at the wrong point. I'm like, it gives women the confidence to go back to exercise, but also it tells women how to go back into exercise after having had a baby.
Yeah.
But and also like the women here, mums here, like got a load of other mums who are now 4 months as well, same stage as me. And like that's so fucking strong. It's amazing. Like it's just like, and they're like, oh, I can't even remember like how it was at the beginning, like how weak I felt versus now. And it's just, it's just like you put in the work initially and just take a step back, and then you'll just come back so much stronger because you're like properly reconnected. I think also like, I think part of it is also like genetics, but like I have like no diastasis now. Like it's just I like from a twin pregnancy, I had in my head I'll be like 4 fingers or whatever.
Yeah.
But like throughout pregnancy, I was doing like my prenatal Pilates, I was doing like deep core work. If anything felt too intense on my abs, I'd like just take it back. Like it wasn't about pushing yourself. It's just about working with your body rather than against it, because that's how we should.
Yeah. I love that. And yeah, like you say, yes, there is a genetic component to diastasis recti, but you had absolutely everything against you in terms of, you know, if we could line up all the things that are most likely to give you the most significant diastasis, you had them on your plate. So, you know, even genetics weren't going to completely unrule all of that. So certainly, you know, like your knowledge, the work that you did and what you've done to support your body on that journey has made a difference, like for sure. You'll never have that measurability of what was genetics, what was the work you did. But I think the fact that you've gone through a twin pregnancy and trained and at 4 months.
Not a stretch.
Yeah, like that's it. That's incredible. So, you know, well done you. And I always like to sort of finish on top tips, Em. And so I wonder if you could share some of the kind of top tips or key pieces of advice that you would give to other twin mums that are either got their twins here or are expecting them?
One thing I've been told a lot, and also is how I want to go about with the girls anyway, is like treat them as two separate people. Because I've had a few people who are twins, and they've said that when they were growing up, like they felt it was really important that they were treated as separate people because they often get lumbered in the group of, oh, the twins or this, that, and the other. So, I mean, I dress them completely differently. But that is also because I haven't really bought any clothes and they're just dressing in Olive's clothes as well.
Yeah.
And but also we take them out separately as well. So if I'm doing nursery runs, sometimes I'll take one twin with me, or if I need to go out and do a food shop or do something, I'll take one of the girls with me, because like that means you get that one-on-one time with them, and it's just so much easier to just take one baby out than two if you can.
That is such. Do you know what? Naively, because clearly I've not had twins, I never thought of that. I've actually just been like, no, but you could have a bit of one-on-one. I know we're not talking a whole day out, but you can have a bit of one-on-one with one baby, so you feel like you do get that. That's a really lovely practice.
And also, I mean, I know a lot of people have, like, say, twins routines really key, but like we kind of aren't really on that. Like they're very different in their sleep requirements. So one will wake up at like 5:30, between 5:30 and 6:30 on a good day, and the other one will wake up around about 7:30, and you kind of just like, do you know what, they need to sleep. But then if one's still napping and the other one's awake, you just have that one-on-one time, and it's just quite nice to just have that. Getting out and about is really key as well, I think, because life is always so much better when you're out of the house. And they're just content. Like normally, I mean, the girls are really happy when I'm on the move. They can see things, and you've got that support. Because I think as a mum, it's just so hard being at home by yourself, and it can be quite solitary and isolating. So actually, just getting out and about is good for your mental health. Look after yourself. And also, I think you can never buy too many nappies. I think the first week we went through probably about 200 nappies.
Oh my
like
God.
It's I mean, obviously, like waste thing, I thought it's awful, but like realistically, like we tried reusable nappies with Olive, and it's just the washing alone is enough for the clothes. So I was just like, do you know what, I just can't.
Yeah, grant yourself some compassion for just using normal nappies.
Yeah, always having like backup nappies, backup outfits, because those early days as well, those poos go everywhere. So yeah, they're kind of like my top tips. But I was chatting to Chuck when you messaged me about coming on the podcast, I was having a chat with my husband about this, and I was like, what advice would you give people? And he was like, do you know what? It's not as bad as you think it'll be. And I was like, I'm so glad you said that, because the whole pregnancy, it was just the whole anxiety around how hard it was going to be if all you saw everywhere. And he was like, realistically, like currently our 3.5-year-old is way harder than twin babies.
I love that. And that, I think, again, is that reassurance, isn't it? Sometimes all you need to hear is that, like, me too, or like, actually, it's going to be all right. Like, it will be okay, get through it. And like you say, there are those beautiful moments that I'm sure make up for those tough nights, and you just see them with
And also, you just have to accept that one baby will, like, you get used to the crying as well. Someone said this in the early days. I remember being like, oh, they're both crying. But someone was like, you'll just get used to it. As long as they're fed, not in danger, and have a fresh nappy, like, they're going to be okay. And like, they just have that. It's just the nature of twins. Like, they will just have to you can only do so much at once. So you're doing your best at the end of the day. Like, being a twin parent is tough, but with every shit bit, there are just so many great bits. And like, I feel like I'm kind of, touch wood, reaping the rewards now, because they sleep really well. They are happy together, so I can leave them on the floor together and not feel guilty if I need to do the washing up quickly, because they've got each other. They don't feel alone. And as they grow up as well, they'll just always have someone to play with, which is really handy, because it can get quite tiring playing as a parent, can't it?
Yeah. It can. And it sounds like they're going to grow up to be strong, independent little girls, because it sounds like Olive is exactly that, and they're going to have to keep up with her. So it's great.
Yeah, as long as she's able to dress them though, like poor girl, she has to go and choose their outfits every day. And I'm like, yay, this is what they're wearing today. Great.
You choose your battles,
yeah.
whatever gets you out the house as easy as possible is an absolute win, isn't it? With a toddler, you choose what you're going to have a battle over, and getting dressed is not one of them.
Yeah, just go with it. Go with the flow.
Oh, you're an absolute star. And for anyone listening who either wants to follow your twin journey, reach out for advice around their own twin experience, or follow you for all of your awesome, real, thank goodness, pre and postnatal exercise advice, where can we find more of you?
So on Instagram, I'm on_point_training. And I think most links, I've got a blog that I very infrequently update these days on there as well. And then the business is the Barn KT9, and we're based in Chessington in Surrey. So there's a lot on there as well about all our life going on behind the scenes. And basically that's where you can go if you want to get a good coffee or exercise. Also, we also got like a group therapy sessions for new mums as well, and all that kind of stuff. So there's an awesome big community going on here. So yeah.
I'm always quite envious actually that I don't live near you, because I feel that community just through your social media, and having seen the picture of your coffee yesterday, and I'm a self-confessed coffee snob, and it looks like the coffee is incredible.
It is really good here. It's needed.
Oh yeah, literally. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you're crazy busy and your hands are more full than possible. You need like octopus arms. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. So
before I head off, I need to tell you something. 68% of you who listen to my show have not hit the subscribe button. So can you do me a favor? And if you've ever enjoyed listening, hit subscribe now. It makes a huge difference, helping me to keep bringing you episodes. And together, we can then reach and empower more women on this journey. If you are a pregnant or newly postpartum listener and are looking to have the healthiest, most positive and informed journey, then my exclusive Your Pregnancy and Your Postnatal Journey courses may be for you. I work with a select number of women in a bespoke way, with unlimited access to me and my expert team for the most transformative level of support at this important time in your life. We only get one shot at getting this time right. So to get in touch and find out more, head to midwifepip.com.
Hi, I'm Sam Baker and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40.
Anyone that's worried about turning 40, I say hurry up and get here. This is where the party is. This is the good place.
Created and hosted by me, journalist and author Sam Baker. I started The Shift because I was so tired of the absence of older women's voices.
3 little injections around my eyes and suddenly I was like, oh, I just got the last year back. I'm not trying to look 30. I just want to look 42.
Where had all the women over 40 gone?
You know, nobody ever gets addicted to kale. You get addicted to things that kill you.
So I created The Shift to make a space to talk about everything from life, love, sex, to careers, confidence, mental health, menopause.
So, I mean, seriously, if you want to walk about in your pyjamas for the rest of your life, we're invisible.
Each episode I speak to an inspiring woman about her shift, the second half of our lives.
I feel very strong and think I genuinely don't care what anybody thinks of me. And that does come with age.
Join me every Tuesday, wherever you listen to your podcasts.